Calculate to the correct significant figures and a
set of problems. Notice one very important thing here. We have mixed problems, both addition and subtraction and multiplication. And so we have to resort to both sets of rounding rules and order of operations. So if you remember from elementary school, your order of operations follows this mnemonic. Parentheses and exponents, then multiply and divide, add and subtract. And the multiply and divide goes from left to right. The add and subtract goes from left to right. PEMDAS. All right. A. I'm not going to recopy it. We have 1.7 times 10 to the 6th, scientific notation, divided by 2.63 times 10 to the 5th, scientific notation. And notice how this is put into your graphing calculator. Now, my scientific calculator, the small little cheap one, it's not an issue. But with the graphing calculators, if you're doing something like this, where you have a division, if you don't put the parentheses in, you'll get the wrong answer. Because, I'm going to rewrite this one over here. If you put it straight into the calculator, the graphing calculator, without parentheses, what you'll get is 1.7 times 10 to the 6th. That's fine, no problem there. When you divide by 2.3, and then without parentheses you multiply times 10 to the 5th, this is what you get. And that will get you the wrong answer because you're multiplying the whole thing by 10 to the 5th rather than dividing the top quantity by 10 to the 5th. That's why on the graphing calculator, use parentheses. You're putting the scientific notation in the long way. If you put it in the short way, similar to what we do on a scientific calculator, you don't have a problem with that because the calculator understands the scientific notation when you put it in that way. Okay, so we'll do this division, and then that quantity we will add, or to that quantity we will add 7.33. All right, 1.7 times 10 to the 6th, and see how it comes up here on the display. 1.7 times 10 on it, 10 to the 6th. Okay, we will divide by 2.63 times 10 equals. Now 2 will add 7.33. I should have written that down, shouldn't I? And I'm going to have to redo it anyway. 1.10 to the 6th divide by 2.63 times the 5th equals. No exponent over here, so it's just 6.4639 rounded plus 7.33. Now to this we will add 7.33 equals 18.7939 and where do we round? 4 or more decimal places here, 2 decimal places here, so we will round here. and that will give us 13 point. The 3 does not make the 9 round up, so this is 0.79, and that's the answer. B. We have this subtraction in parentheses, so we will do this first, and then we will divide by 5.3. So 568.99 minus 232.1 equals 336.89. But is that where we leave it? No, we have to round to 1 decimal place. This kind of a problem we wind up rounding twice, which is not ideal. Then we will divide by 5.3. So we have 4 significant figures divided by 2 significant figures. So even if we don't round over here, it's not going to make a major difference. One is not rounded, so we will divide by 3 equals 63.56. Two significant figures here, so we will round here. This will become 64. Now, if we had not, well, that's actually, this is without the rounding. Go back and do it this way, and we'll see that it makes no significant difference in this problem. 336.9 rounded divided by 5.3 equals 63.566, 63.5, and that would be a 7, all of which gets dropped, and so we wind up with 64 that way too. So rounding here and then rounding here did not produce an error. Normally we round only once, but most of our calculations are going to be just a long series of multiply and divide. And so we can round once at the end with no trouble there. All right, C. 94.43 plus 45 minus 9.9. Then multiply by 8.1 times 10^6. This is in basic notation. And in your graphing calculator, because this is all multiplications, we don't have to worry. So inside the parentheses, we do that first, then we do our multiplication. Inside the parentheses we get 443 plus 45 minus 99 equals 9478.1. Okay, and here again go ahead and round the part, and we have no decimal places, no decimal places, 1 decimal place, so we lose the decimal. It becomes 94.78, and then we will multiply by 8.1 times 10 to the 6th. And that converts to scientific notation 7.68 or 6773 times 10 to the 10th. Look at that again. You see the 10 up here? That's our exponent. And where do we round? 4 significant figures multiplied by 2 significant figures. we will round here, and it doesn't matter what this is. This is not part of the significant figures. .7 times 10 to the 10th. D. Multiplication inside parentheses. This is not scientific notation, it's a straight multiplication. And then from that quantity we subtract 2.34. 3.14, like a shortened pi, times 2.4367 equals 7.6512. From that we will subtract minus 2.34. Okay, equals 5.311. Okay, I've carried 4 decimal places here, 2 decimal places here, so this difference is going to round at 2 decimal places there, and so that becomes 5.31. Notice that the intermediate steps we have to write down in order to keep track of all of it. If you just put it into the calculator, you should come out with an answer that will be almost right if you put it in correctly. But it may not be rounded quite right. And so that's where your rounding rules can get a little bit convoluted, is when you have mixed operations.